In the 1,000 years of stillness in the Zen gate, a simple yet profound truth has been passed down by the masters through every breath and every cup of tea. Suffering does not come from a lack, but from holding on too tightly. The human heart, which is inherently a pure lotus flower rising from the world's mud, often turns itself into a traveler, carrying a heavy burden. We not only carry the necessary baggage for life, but also shoulder countless invisible stones, the regrets of the past, the worries of the future, and the demands for a life that must be different from what it is now. Imagine a clenched fist. Initially, it is just a natural action to hold a precious gem. However, as time passes, that fist gradually becomes stiff and calloused. It is no longer the act of holding the gem, but has itself transformed into a painful grasping. The gem, no matter how sparkling, becomes a chain. Grasping is not merely the act of holding on. It is the act of identifying oneself with the object being held. It is the false belief that if I lose this, I will lose myself. The difference between holding and grasping. Holding is a functional act, holding the steering wheel while driving, holding a knife while cutting vegetables. It is flexible and time-limited. Grasping is a psychological act, holding on to a resentment, holding on to a former title. It is rigid, continuous, and causes internal tension even when there is no external threat. When you grasp, your mind is stuck in a state of defense, automatically creating a wall that separates you from the peace of the present moment. The cost of the clenched fist. This tightened fist comes with a huge physical and spiritual price. Mental exhaustion. The mind's energy is constantly depleted protecting the concepts of I and mine, fame, possessions, relationships, and even the pains or qualities we are proud of. Every clenched fist is a binding rope. Physical tension. Mental grasping is clearly manifested in the physical body. The relationship between my compassionate gaze. I put her down a long time ago. As for you, are you still carrying her? Profound analysis of action and thought. The master's act of letting go. The master's action of carrying the girl was an act of compassion, an action of pure present moment. He did it, and then he forgot it immediately. The girl did not become a part of the past story to be stored or justified in his mind. This is precisely non-doing, vo-vi, action without intention, leaving no trace. The disciples grasping. The event was over. The girl had been set down, but its shadow was still held, embraced, and nurtured by the disciple's mind, turning it into a burden. The disciple had engaged in a subtle chain of grasping for the precepts, believing that the precepts are immutable and must be rigidly kept under all circumstances, grasping for judgment, evaluating the master's action based on a fixed concept of what a monk ought to be, grasping for time, dragging an event that was finished in the morning into the evening moment, making the present heavy and contaminated by the past. This story is a perfect metaphor for grasping. The burden lies not in the event, the girl, but in the mind's resistance to that event. Suffering does not come from carrying the girl, but from carrying the concept of the girl. Letting go in the light of Zen is not a forced action, nor is it the absolute renunciation of possessions. Letting go is a consequence, a natural reaction when we truly see clearly. When a child is clutching a hot coal, no one needs to tell them. They will automatically open their hand. That letting go does not come from a moral lesson or a precept, but from the direct seeing of the heat and the pain. Letting go is the action of wisdom and not the action of willpower. You cannot use willpower to force the mind to be still. You only need to use wisdom to see that grasping is causing suffering. Analyzing the water metaphor. When we clearly see the impermanence of all things, seeing that glory will fade, beauty will diminish, and all emotions are fleeting bubbles, the grasp automatically loosens. We see that what we are trying to hold on to is not the object itself, but the concept of primal stillness. From the deeper perspective of Vijnanavada, consciousness-only school, grasping can be categorized into two fundamental forms, which are the root of all burdens. Grasping for self. This is the attachment to the idea of a permanent, independent, and enduring self. We believe that there is a person who needs to be protected, justified, and made happy. All worries about fame, success, or the fear of death originate from grasping for self. Example: the burden comes from trying to prove that you are a successful person. Grasping for phenomena. This is the attachment to the idea that the objects and phenomena around us, jobs, possessions, relationships, even the concept of impermanence, are fixed entities. We believe that these phenomena have a true nature and can be held on to. Example: the burden comes from trying to cling to a past job or a finished relationship. Complete letting go requires us to see clearly both types of grasping. When grasping for self vanishes, we no longer need to justify ourselves. When grasping for phenomena vanishes, we accept that everything around us is impermanent and non-self. The miracle of letting go is that, when the hand opens, we do not lose the gem at all. On the contrary, we realize that the gem, or anything we ever longed for, was actually already in the open palm, without needing to be imprisoned in a tight clench. The most precious gem is the inherent peace of the mind. In the light of Zen, peace is not a goal to be achieved, but a default state to return to. The peace, freedom, and wholeness we relentlessly pursue through goals, achievements, and efforts to improve ourselves are, in fact, the essence of the awareness witnessing this entire journey. It does not need to be fixed, does not need to be perfected, does not need to be attained. It just needs to be recognized. Like looking for the glasses you are already wearing, or searching for the key you are already holding. Allow your body to sink deep into rest. Relax your shoulders, which often carry the weight of things not yet let go of. Manifest as obvious desire. It has three subtle interwoven forms that create the net trapping the mind. Craving for being. This is the yearning to exist, to endure, to be validated, the clinging to the self. Manifestation. Craving for fame, status, wanting to be important, wanting a stable self, wanting to live forever. Humanity's greatest fear is the extreme manifestation of craving for being. We want ourself to not disintegrate with the impermanence of all things. Source of suffering. When we try to hold tightly to what is fading, we are confronting the law of impermanence, and disappointment is inevitable. Craving for non-being. This is the desire to escape, to destroy, to make unwanted things disappear. It is resistance, resentment, or aversion. Manifestation. Wanting pain to end immediately. Wanting to escape a boring job. Wanting others to change their behavior. Wanting to erase the past. This is the refusal to accept reality as it is. Source of suffering. Reality always includes things we do not want. Craving for non-being creates continuous resistance to reality. This resistance, not the pain itself, is the source of prolonged suffering. craving for sense pleasure. This is the yearning for sensory objects. Manifestation. Excessive eating and drinking, social media addiction, seeking excitement, chasing limitless material comfort. Source of suffering. The hedonic treadmill. Every sensory satisfaction is temporary. Once achieved, the consciousness quickly adjusts, and we need a larger dose of stimulation to reach the same level of satisfaction. This loop never stops, creating continuous emptiness and disillusionment. In modern society, craving has been upgraded into an economic and cultural mechanism. We not only crave basic things, but also crave intangible concepts. Productivity craving. We are obsessed with having to always work, having to always be busy to prove our existence and value. Rest is considered a failure or a waste. Burden. The fear of confronting stillness. When doing,
trade the peace of the present moment for an illusion of security in the future. The goal of letting go is not to become an emotionless person without goals or to abandon all desires. Rather, it is to transform the powerful energy of craving into aspiration. Craving arises from lack. It says, "I am not enough. I need that to be whole." It pushes the mind outward to search. Craving leads to grasping. Aspiration arises from the wholeness of the self. It says, "I am already whole. I want this action to serve that wholeness." It pulls the mind back to the action of the present moment. Aspiration leads to service. Positive aspirations. Aspiration for awakening. The yearning to see the truth, to be liberated from attachment. This is the only aspiration that turns inward, eliminating the root of all suffering. Aspiration for service. The desire to use one's talents and energy to benefit others. Satisfaction comes from the act of giving, not from the result received. Aspiration for full presence. The desire to be completely present in every moment, not distracted by worries of the past or the future. Letting go of craving is not about killing desire, but about identifying and clearly seeing their impermanent nature. Where does the guest come from? When craving arises, pause and ask, where is this feeling of lack coming from? Simply witness the appearance of craving, without judging it and without acting upon it. This witnessing creates a space, helping you escape the automatic reaction. The practice of enough. This is a direct counterbalance to craving. Daily, practice pausing and saying, "This moment is enough. I have enough." In eating, stop before you are completely full. In work, stop when the main goal is achieved. Don't try to cram in more just to feel busy. In shopping, stop when necessary items are acquired. Do not buy to fill a psychological void. Using craving as an anchor. Craving, despite causing suffering, is also an anchor to This is the time we use to plan, measure productivity, and organize life. Chronos is a useful tool for the physical world. However, when the consciousness identifies itself with Chronos, it becomes pressured by finiteness. Manifestation of burden. The feeling of rushing, constantly looking at the clock, fear of deadlines, and believing that happiness is something to be achieved later. The present moment. Kairos is the time of the liberated consciousness. It is the boundlessness of the now. In Kairos, there is no tension because there is no distinction between finished and must do. Every action is whole. Core truth. Only Kairos is reality. Past and future are just conceptual structures created within this Kairos. The burden of the past, where the ego builds its identity. The past is not the events that happened, but the collection of memories, regrets, and stories that the ego chooses to hold on to. The past of regret and resentment. Regret is craving for non-being, the desire for an event that has occurred to have been different. It is the most intense resistance to the past reality. Regret forces us to relive the pain unnecessarily, draining mental energy. Resentment is the grasping onto the role of victim or the wronged party. The ego feels stronger when clinging to the story of injustice. Resentment is the chain linking us to the person we hate, stripping us of our freedom in the present. The past of identity and image. The ego constructs itself based on the successes and roles it has held in the past. We cling to the image of a hero, an intelligent person, or a deeply wounded person. Burden. The fear of losing that identity. When faced with failure in the present, the ego reacts violently because it feels its entire foundation is collapsing. Letting go of the past is letting go of the need to live according to a defined story. The burden of the future, where anxiety and expectation reside. If the past is the grasping onto what was, then the future is the craving for sense pleasure and being. The grasping onto what must be, for us to feel secure.
Present. Letting go of psychological time is the act of returning home, returning to the present moment. The present is the door to infinity. When we are fully present in Kairos, we step outside the finiteness of Chronos. Every action, whether washing dishes or writing a book, becomes deeply meaningful and complete. Wholeness is unconditional. The difference. When the mind is in the future, you wash dishes to get the job done. When the mind is in the present, you wash dishes as an act of meditation, where the entirety of life is expressed through this action. The present is the only anchor of life. All power, all healing, all insight can only happen in this moment. If the past needs forgiveness, you forgive it in the present. If the future needs preparation, you prepare it in the present. Letting go is not about forgetting the past or stopping planning for the future, but about stopping carrying them into the present as a psychological burden. 5. Practical methods. Anchoring to the breath and the body. To let go of the burden of time, we must use a tool that always exists in the present, the body and the breath. The practice of breath awareness. The breath is the unfailing bridge between Chronos and Kairos. The breath always happens in this moment, never in the past or the future. Exercise. When you feel anxiety or regret arising, shift your attention entirely to the breath. Feel the flow of air going in and out. This simple action immediately pulls the scattered consciousness back to the still point of the present. The practice of inner body awareness. Modern psychology and meditation both emphasize your body is always in the present. Exercise. When the mind is agitated, relax and feel the life energy within the body. This sensation is a form of contemplation, which helps break your identification with thoughts about time. Tension is the physical evidence of resistance to the present, and by accepting that sensation in the body, you have let go of the resistance. Remember, absolute letting go does not need to be achieved tomorrow. It only needs to be practiced right now. Dwelling opinions, political views, beliefs, ideologies, roles, parent,
child, boss, the wounded person, successes and failures, the medals and the scars. The ego is the sum of these stories, used to answer the question, who am I? An answer based on impermanent things can never be sustainable. The ego lives on comparison and judgment. To maintain the illusion of separation, the ego must constantly perform two actions. Comparison. I am better/worse than him. Comparison is the automatic mechanism that helps the ego position itself in society and reinforce grasping for self. Judgment. This is right/wrong. This person is good/bad. Judgment is resistance to the present and a tool for the ego to protect its viewpoint. When we judge, we temporarily feel superior, which soothes the ego's fear of imperfection. The ego is a survival mechanism. The ego was formed in early childhood to help us survive. It is the information sensor, trying to control the environment to avoid physical and psychological harm. But in the adult world, this mechanism becomes obsolete and creates unnecessary suffering. It views every new situation through the lens of fear. Will this threaten my existence? Fear, the energy source of the ego. Fear is not just the emotion when facing danger. It is the background state of the ego. The ego operates based on a deep lack of trust in the wholeness of reality. The core fear, the fear of annihilation. The ego's greatest fear is not physical death, but the fear of losing its identity. The fear that the self it painstakingly built will disintegrate. Fear of failure, fear of losing the identity of the successful person. Fear of rejection, fear of losing the identity of the loved person. Fear of impermanence, fear of losing control and stability. The reaction of control. Fear always leads to the desire for control. We try to control the environment, people, and even our own feelings to prevent the feared outcome. This desire for control is the ultimate manifestation of grasping. The paradox of defense. The defensive actions can choose awareness over reaction. This single second of awareness dissolves the ego's power. Practical methods for softening the ego. Self-humor. The ego is always serious and demands perfection. Learning to laugh at your own mistakes and imperfections is a direct attack on the ego's structure. Humor reveals the absurdity of the ego's self-importance. The practice of I don't know. The ego wants to know everything and always be right. When challenged, practice saying genuinely, I don't know, or perhaps you are right. This intentional abandonment of the need for certainty softens the rigid walls of the ego. Serving without recognition. Perform an act of kindness without seeking any acknowledgement or reward. The act of pure giving, where the ego receives no nourishment, strengthens the boundless self. Letting go of the ego means realizing that your deepest value is unconditional. You do not need to do or have anything to be whole. You simply are. The weight of the world lifts when you stop trying to carry the burden of the ego's creation. The witnessing awareness. Letting go is not a struggle. It is the action of seeing clearly the mechanisms that create the burden. This clear seeing is the witnessing awareness. Defining the witness. The witnessing awareness is the silent, impartial space of observation within you. It is the part of your consciousness that can observe thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations without judging, analyzing, or reacting. The role of the mirror. The witness is like a perfectly clean mirror. It reflects everything that passes before it. Light, darkness, beauty, ugliness. But it is never stained or affected by the reflection. The mirror does not judge the reflection. It simply reflects. The great separation.
Practicing the witness creates the fundamental separation required for liberation, separation between the observer and the observed, the mind, thoughts, emotions, stories, the awareness, the space in which the mind operates. When you say, "I am angry," you are the observed. When you say, "I see anger arising," you are the observer. This shift is the essence of letting go.
Practice of labeling and releasing. A practical way to cultivate the witnessing awareness. Stop. When intense emotions arise, stop all physical and mental activities for a moment. Observe the sensation in the body. Do not analyze the story behind the emotion. Instead, find where the emotion manifests as a physical sensation. The body is the most honest anchor of the present. Label. Mentally label the sensation or the thought without judgment. Tension, worrying thought, judgmental thought. The act of labeling brings the unconscious into the light of awareness. Release, allow. After labeling, gently say, "passing," or "allow." This is the active action of letting go, allowing the phenomenon to run its full course without interference. This practice is the constant return to the center of stillness, where there is only the awareness of what is. The art of acceptance. Acceptance is the non-resistant stance toward the present moment. It is the complete opposite of the ego's desire for control and craving for non-being. Acceptance is the moment the clenching stops. Acceptance versus resignation. It is crucial to distinguish between true acceptance and passive resignation. Resignation. I give up because I cannot change anything. I am weak. Acceptance. I accept this moment as it is, knowing that resistance only causes suffering. This is the starting point for effective action. Acceptance does not mean you agree with the current situation or that you will not act to change it in the future. It simply means you stop fighting the reality of this moment. The formula for suffering. Buddhist teachings state that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Acceptance is the tool to turn inevitable pain into temporary pain, preventing it from becoming prolonged suffering. Pain, the actual event. Resistance, the psychological reaction to the event. Suffering, S equals P times R. If R equals 1, suffering is equal to or greater than pain. If R equals 0, suffering is minimized, becoming close to the initial pain. An unchangeable situation. Feel the resistance. Acknowledge the physical and mental pain of wanting things to be different. Declare acceptance. Mentally say, "I surrender to this moment," or "this is what it is." This is not an empty phrase. It is the conscious choice to let go of the control-seeking ego. Find the deeper peace. Beneath the layer of resistance, there is always the vast, unshakable peace of the awareness. That peace is your true nature, ready to embrace all forms. The art of acceptance is to welcome everything and hold on to nothing. Facing the shadow. Letting go is not running away from negative emotions or pain. It is the direct opposite. It is the courage to face and embrace the unacknowledged parts of the self, the shadow. Defining the shadow. The shadow, in spiritual psychology, is the collection of all the things we have judged as unacceptable in ourselves and have pushed into the darkness of the unconscious mind. Manifestation. Shame, feelings of inadequacy, buried anger, hidden selfish desires, deep-seated fear. The burden. The shadow does not disappear just because we ignore it. It consumes vast energy to keep it suppressed.
The suppressed energy often bursts out as overreactions, self-sabotage, or judgment of others. This is a huge, invisible burden. Embracing the pain. We cannot let go of what we refuse to look at. The core practice of transforming the shadow is embracing the pain and integrating it into wholeness. The welcoming. When an old painful emotion, shame, fear, deep sadness arises, instead of pushing it away, turn toward it as if you are welcoming a lost child home. Do not analyze it, just feel it. The question of need. Ask the emotion, what do you need? Usually, the pain just needs witnessing and unconditional acceptance. It needs to be acknowledged that, yes, this pain is part of my experience. The integration. When you embrace the pain, the energy that was bound up in suppression is released and transforms into wisdom and compassion, both for yourself and for others. The more darkness you are willing to face in yourself, the brighter your light becomes.
First open to embrace the full scope of its own inner world, unconditional love and acceptance. When the burdens of grasping, craving, ego, and resistance are let go, the heart returns to its original nature, which is unconditional love. This love is not an emotion, but a state of being, a pure stream of energy that flows naturally when the blockages are removed. Love without grasping. The love that is a burden is always conditional love. It is a contract that says, I love you if you meet my needs and if you remain the person I want you to be. Unconditional love. This love is the acceptance of the other person exactly as they are, without the need for change. It is the letting go of the expectation that the other person must fulfill the needs of your ego. The paradox. When you truly let go of the need for them to be different, the relationship is liberated and the love energy flows freely. Love as giving, not taking. Conditional love seeks to receive validation, security, and happiness from the other person. Unconditional love is a pure overflow. It only seeks to give peace, acceptance, and well wishes. The open hand gives freely and receives what comes naturally without holding on. The non-dual nature of compassion. The realization of non-self achieved through letting go dissolves the wall between self and other. Compassion is the immediate reaction of the liberated heart when facing suffering. When you see another person's pain, the awareness immediately recognizes the reflection of shared human experience. You do not need to try to fix their pain, but you simply be with them in their pain. This is the ultimate act of presence and acceptance. Equanimity. This is the ability to maintain inner peace and balance, even in the face of the world's storms. It is the stability of the witnessing awareness that allows you to act effectively without being swept away by the drama. Equanimity is the foundation that allows unconditional love to flow steadily. The liberated effort. Action driven by craving for a specific result, rooted in the ego's need to prove itself. It is tense, forced, and often inefficient. The energy is depleted. Action of non-doing. Action arising from clarity, presence, and inner stillness. The action is complete in itself, without attachment to the future outcome. The energy is renewed. The flow. Vo-vi is the state of flow, where the ego disappears and the practitioner and the action become one.
The work is done naturally, spontaneously, and perfectly. This is the ultimate expression of dwelling in the present. The paradox of effort. In the spiritual life, excessive effort only reinforces the ego that wants to achieve enlightenment. The practice of do not try. Try to force yourself to fall asleep. You fail. Try to force yourself not to think. The mind becomes noisier. True rest and true stillness arise when you let go of the effort to achieve them. Action as expression. The action of non-doing means that action is no longer a means to an end, but the natural expression of your being. You do not do kindness to be a good person. You are kind because the burdens that block the inherent kindness have been removed. Practical methods for effortless action. Release the outcome. Before starting a task, mentally and emotionally release the need for a specific result. Say, I will do my best in this moment, and the result is up to the universe, reality. This removes the pressure of the future and frees up creative energy. Focus only on the next step. When faced with a large project, the ego is overwhelmed by the whole picture. Practice bringing the mind back to only the action right now. This is dwelling in kairos and is the most effective way to eliminate the burden of the journey. Rest in the stillness. Between tasks, take a moment to stop. Do not rush immediately to the next thing. This deliberate moment of stillness recharges the awareness and ensures that the next action arises from peace, not from tension. When the hand in, the void is not the absence of life, but the infinite possibility that precedes all form and concept. This is the profound, unconditional peace that is the original nature. The journey's paradox, forgetting the map. The entire teaching is merely a finger pointing at the moon. The final letting go. The final act is the letting go of the need for the teaching itself. Letting go of the concept of letting go. Letting go of the witnessing awareness. Letting go of the goal of awakening. The goal is simply to be the unconditional presence that exists before all thoughts about being. The eternal present. The ultimate fruit of the journey is the effortless ability to live fully in the eternal present. Life as the practice. When the burden is gone, there is no need for separate spiritual practice. Your job is your practice. Your relationships are your practice. Your walking is your meditation. The whole of life becomes the natural expression of liberation. The invisible legacy. The burden you let go of is replaced by peace. This peace is the invisible legacy you leave in the world. When you move without the ego's tension and grasping, you become a source of stillness for others. The final invitation. You have seen the root of the burden. You have understood the practice of release, and you have tasted the fruit of freedom. The journey of letting go is not about achieving perfection, but about embracing unconditional imperfection. Now, sink deep into the stillness of your body. Let your mind become soft and realize the entire universe is contained in the simple act of this one open hand. You are already home. The action of effortless flow. The most beautiful result of letting go is the effortless flow of life. The action of non-doing arises from inner stillness. There is no more striving, no more forcing. You work and serve naturally, like a flowing current, without grasping onto the result. The invisible legacy. The legacy you leave behind is not material possessions, but the quality of stillness you bring to the world. When you are no longer controlled by the ego,
you become a mirror that the now is not just a fleeting moment in the stream of Chronos, but the unconditioned and boundless reality itself, the gateway to eternity. The present moment is the only point of contact with eternity. In the light of Zen, everything that truly exists, your being, your action, your awareness, is happening now. Past and future are imaginary dimensions. They are not real places you can visit, but merely concepts, thoughts and memories about what was, and thoughts and projections about what will be. By anchoring your consciousness to these dimensions, you voluntarily step out of reality. The now is complete. The present does not need the past to justify its existence, nor the future to be fulfilled. It is inherently whole, perfect, and absolute. When you are fully present, there is no sense of lack. The paradox of impermanence in the eternal present. One might wonder, if all things are impermanent, how can the present be eternal? The form changes, the awareness endures. Phenomena are impermanent. They arise and pass. But the awareness that witnesses the arising and passing of phenomena is the constant, stable element. The river and the riverbed. Life is a constant, flowing river. The eternal present is the riverbed that remains stable and unshakable, allowing the flow to occur. Your essence is not the water, but the riverbed. Living in the eternal present. Living in the eternal present is not about sitting still and doing nothing. It is about filling every action with complete presence, unconditional presence. This means bringing your entire undivided attention to the action you are currently doing, whether it is working, communicating, or simply resting. The quality of your life is determined not by what you do, but by how much presence you bring to the doing. The end of waiting. The ego's greatest trick is convincing you that life is about to begin when you achieve the next milestone. Living in the eternal present means realizing that life is already happening now. By fully inhabiting the now, you stop waiting for happiness and realize that happiness is the inherent state of the unburdened mind. The eternal present is the carry. The content versus the process. We often focus on the content of the thoughts, but the true burden lies in the process itself, the endless, repetitive, and habitual churning of the mind. This process drains the mental energy needed for full presence. The false sense of control. The ego believes that thinking equals solving. It is the illusion that if we worry hard enough about the future or regret enough about the past, we are somehow controlling the uncontrollable. This constant mental effort is the final form of grasping, clinging to the mechanism of thought itself. Entering the great silence. The silence beyond thought is the natural, default state of the liberated mind. It is not an achievement gained through strenuous effort, but a return accomplished by letting go of the effort to think. Silence is not blankness. This silence is not a void or a state of unconsciousness. It is a state of alert, spacious awareness, a fullness of presence where thoughts may still arise, but they are no longer believed, followed, or identified with. They simply pass through the vast sky of the mind. The unconditioned space. When the mental chatter subsides, the mind drops its psychological resistance to the present moment. This is where the ultimate, unconditional peace resides. In this silence, you realize that you are not the thoughts you have been carrying. You are the space in which the thoughts happen. The practice of deep rest. The practice leading to the great silence is the art of deep rest, a revolutionary act of non-doing in a world obsessed with activity. Resting the attention.
Instead of using the breath or the body as an object of focus, we practice resting the attention itself. Allow the attention to become soft, wide, and receptive, embracing the entire field of awareness without seeking or rejecting any content. Allowing the drop. When a thought arises, do not try to stop it nor analyze it. Simply allow the thought to drop back into the stillness from which it arose. Thoughts are like the surface tension of water. If you stop disturbing the surface, the water naturally returns to stillness. The fruit of silence in daily life. The mind accustomed to the silence work as meditation. If Chapter 9 introduced the action of non-doing as a principle, Chapter 13 is the application of that principle to the most challenging reality of modern life: work. Work, which should be a vehicle for expressing talent, often becomes the heaviest burden because it is where grasping onto results, fame, and self-validation operates most fiercely. The ego's work. When work is dominated by the ego, it becomes an activity driven by the purpose of proving worth. I must succeed to be accepted and valuable. Fighting time. The feeling of constantly having to rush to achieve goals before it is too late. Clinging to results. Worrying, fearing failure, or trying to control every variable to guarantee success. Work under the command of the ego is heavy effort. It creates stress, burnout, and ironically, reduces actual efficiency because energy is consumed by the psychological resistance to change and uncertainty. Work as meditation. Work as meditation is the effortless action, where the action is performed for the sake of the action itself, rather than for the result to be received. This action arises from inner stillness and the eternal present. Letting go of the outcome. The core release in work is the relinquishment of the need to control or cling to the final outcome. This does not mean a lack of responsibility, but an acceptance. I commit to doing my best in this moment, and after that, I let the flow of life determine the result. Absolute presence. When the mind is not burdened by the future or the past, it can pour 100% of its energy into the present action. This action is no longer doing a thing, but becoming the action, creating a natural flow state where the ego vanishes. A source of renewable energy. Work without grasping does not deplete energy. It actually generates energy because it is performed lightly, without the psychological friction of resistance. Practical methods for release in work. Applying the principle of letting go to daily work is not about major changes, but subtle shifts in consciousness. Chapter 14 addresses the heaviest burden those stories create: judgment and labels. In the eyes of the witnessing awareness, success and failure are not fixed truths, but merely temporary labels, pasted by the ego onto impermanent events. True letting go requires freeing oneself from the need to be defined by any label. The burden of the label. We spend our lives striving to achieve the good label and avoiding the bad label. Grasping onto good labels. When you cling tightly to the label successful person, it becomes a massive psychological burden. You must constantly strive to protect that label, fearing that any mistake will cause your entire identity to collapse. The fear of losing the label is often greater than the joy of possessing it. Resisting bad labels. We waste infinite energy resisting and denying negative labels. This action does not erase the event. It only increases suffering because we are fighting a reality that has already occurred. In the light of the eternal present, a past event is merely a completed action. Only the judgment transforms it into a psychological burden. The Zen release. Zen does not deny the difference in the quality of actions, but it lets go of the identification with the outcome of that action. The non-self nature of action. An action performed in mindfulness is a pure action, without a doer. When you let go of the I who is responsible for that success or failure, you return the action to its non-self nature. Success is seen as the assembly of countless conditions. Letting go of it is letting go of arrogance. Failure is seen as the assembly of conditions. Letting go of it is letting go of self-blame and regret. Becoming the master of impermanence. When you accept that everything is impermanent, you clearly see that the labels success or failure also only exist for a moment before dissolving. You become free to use the outcomes without being possessed by them. Practicing freedom from labels. To live freely,
unconditional, and boundless. Letting go of possessions. If work is where the ego grasps fame, then material possessions are where it clings to false security. Your document affirmed, the legacy is not material possessions, which places Chapter 15 at the heart of releasing dependence on external objects. The invisible burden of ownership. Possessions are not just tangible objects like houses, money, or goods. They are psychological symbols of control and safety in an impermanent world. Ownership creates a double burden. Grasping for acquisition. It is the temporary satisfaction of craving. We believe possessions will fill an inner void, but as soon as they are acquired, the void reappears, demanding a larger object. Grasping for retention. The greatest burden is not ownership, but the fear of loss. Every item becomes a vulnerability, a point the ego must constantly defend. The more one has, the greater the psychological burden to keep and protect, leading to continuous anxiety. The confusion between I have and I am. The ego constantly confuses I have and I am. It believes its value and essence can be quantified by the net worth of the assets it holds. Assets as definition. When we identify ourselves with possessions, we are placing our entire identity on an impermanent foundation. When assets change or disappear, the ego reacts as if it is facing its own annihilation. Assets as resistance to death. At the deepest level, the accumulation of material things is the unconscious attempt to resist impermanence and death. We hope that material stability will bring eternal stability. The art of usage. Letting go of material things is not extreme renunciation, but the shift from the state of ownership to the state of usage. Possessions as tools, not identity. View material things as tools that serve life, not as a part of yourself. The car serves transportation, not the ego.